Radio personality Lisa Moy is an old friend and colleague from KMOJ. In this exclusive interview, she talks candidly about Go's diversity, claims of cultural appropriation, and why she didn't get bumped up to the morning show when Sophia Harris left the station. When you first heard that Go was being sold, where were you at, and what was your emotional response to hearing that?
Wow, like this is like people's lives, you know, that are just hanging in, like, what are they gonna do? So, and they're my friends, some of them are my friends, and so I feel you're super connected with them in that way, like, you know, what's the next step for them? It's heartbreaking, and then you lose something that people loved, and it brought entertainment to people, and you know, from being on the radio, you have people calling you and they say, I was having the worst day, but I heard your voice, or you said something that made me smile or made me keep going. There's a lot of people who looked at Go for that, to look not just for the music, but the people, the personalities. They created connections with these people that they felt like they knew them. So it's just kind of like a breakup. I saw somebody say, I feel like Go 95.3 leaving is like my boyfriend breaking up with me. It feels like a breakup because it's a loss, definitely for the city and definitely for the people who were working on that station.
Did you consider the staff like a diverse group of people?
So that's so funny. Yes, I say yes. It's came up before. It's been brought up before. How
in what ways?
In ways like I've heard through the grapevine, in the streets. I've heard, Go, how can they talk about hip hop, or how can this be a hip hop station where there's no one black on the station, or there's not enough black representation on the station. And so I thought about that today while I was in the shower, and I just went down a list of like the people that were there when I was there. And I feel like there were diversity. I feel like, we had myself, a black woman, Sophia Harris, a mixed race woman. Yeah. We had Tone, who was Native American and black. We had Bonix, who was Asian. We had Augie, who was Hispanic. We had Pete, who's Caucasian. Like, we had, diversity in the station, but did we have enough black personalities, maybe, on-air personalities? No. Do we have a lot of women personalities? No. So when you say diversity, I want to say yes, but then also when you kind of break it down, maybe not as much as people would have liked to see. You know what I'm saying? Because it's a hip hop station. But then I think about hip hop and I think of how inclusive hip hop is to everyone. And so I did like the fact that we did have a lot of different backgrounds, different nationalities, but I do understand some people saying that we needed to have a more black representation. I understand that.
Do you think that played a role in the station's ability to connect with the community?
Absolutely. Oh yeah, absolutely. Most definitely. People want to relate to someone that looks like them, I feel. People want to hear from people that look like them. And if you don't look like them and you're speaking about issues that may not seem to concern you because of what you look like, that could be damaging to some. Some might feel like you don't have the expertise to speak on things or talk to my community because you don't look like what my community looks like. And so I think it did have a barrier for connection with the community. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, and I think about how many individuals in this market are transplants. Yeah. From California, Detroit, Atlanta, New York, where you have traditional urban stations that are predominantly black, if not exclusively, and are rocking from 6 a.m. to 6 a.m. Yeah. And so to come here and see the leading urban station be led by predominantly white or white passing people could be considered cultural appropriation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. You're definitely right. It is. It can be. I think that's another reason why it didn't last so long. You know, because people say, well, it was a wide open market for hip hop. Yeah, it is a wide open market for hip hop, but you definitely want to make sure you have to be careful with that. Because like I said, the personalities may have been diverse, but the bosses weren't. And the people who were making all the major decisions were not. And so people look at that and people don't like that. So, and I understand, being a black woman, I understand that. I definitely get it. And coming from a station that was predominantly black, I definitely get it. Where the bosses was black and the board was black and the people writing my check was black, you know. So it's definitely different, and I can see how people would be disconnected or upset about a hip hop station being in Minnesota that was not black owned or black higher ups being black. I can understand that.
And having radio experience myself and understanding the demographics of this market, if you have 30% African American and 70% Caucasian, you have a bigger pie to tap into if you're catering to a white audience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which could drive music choice, your modern hip hop. Yeah. But there was a lot of pop music that was integrated into the programming.
Yeah.
So what is the intent? Is the intent to truly display the hip hop culture, or was the intent to cater to 70% white demographics?
Try to get that market. Try to get those
business.
It is business. It to be. So for B96, a totally different entity supposedly than Go 95.3, even though it was the
owned by the same
people,
company.
you know, just different names changed. I just think that I would say, in my opinion, that hip hop was never something that they were wanting to go in that lane. I feel, you know, from it being B96. I think it was even one time like K-Twin or something like that, to just hip hop. I want to say, in my opinion, that it never meant to be hip hop. That's what I think. I think they saw something that they could probably get into and they got into it. But I don't think that they set out to be a hip hop station. I think they would prefer to have been like a top 40 type of a station.
Yeah. I was curious. So let me ask you this. So when Sophia Eris, it looked like she had done some touring with Lizzo, and so she was kind of chiming in remote, and then that faded out, and then we didn't hear her anymore. Yeah. And so as a radio chick, I was like, they should bump Lisa into that spot. Yeah. Why didn't that happen?
Oh, girl, I think they should have bumped me into that spot too. Why didn't that happen? I think it did not happen because I think they didn't want to put in the dollars. I don't think that they wanted to invest the money for another morning show person.
Did you guys have the conversation?
Oh, of course. That was my opportunity. I'm not going to just, it was open. I do radio. Why wouldn't I want to go from weekend to a major day part? That's where I come from. So, yeah, of course, I had conversations, and we talked about it a number of times. And the answer that I would always get back was, we want to see how things go without Sophia being on right now. We want to see what Augie can do. We want to see how our numbers shift. We don't want to make too many big changes. You get that, or let's build you up for, let's build you up for the morning. Let's build you up.
How did that feel when knowing you came from mornings for 7 years?
Yeah, so it made me feel a couple of different emotions. At first it made me feel like, oh, okay, I get it. Yeah, that's, no, you don't want to make abrupt changes because this change is abrupt. And you want to see how this goes and see how it can, carry on. It's a business too, like we just said. It's a business, so you don't want to pay me, which you're going to have to pay me to get back in that spot because our revenue is lacking actually right now. So I get that. But then, you know, then it plays on your self-esteem. It plays on your insecurities. It plays on your, you know, like, oh, over there, speaking of Camel J, I was good enough. Am I not good enough over here? Because, you know, now you have to listen. Now you're listening to me to get me ready for that position. Possibly, though, depending on how the numbers go and all that stuff. So it made me feel, at first it made me be understanding, and then it also pissed me off a little bit. I'm not gonna lie to you. And also made me feel like, you know, try it out. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you try it out. I don't have a problem with being demoted or, you know what I'm saying? But try it, because if you would have tried it, you never know what could have happened. It could have been a great thing for the station, or it could have not have been a great thing for the station. But we don't know because we didn't even try it. And then I think they had an intern kind of fill in. She was a female intern that kind of filled in for a female voice here and there. So then it kind of just played on my, it kind of played on me knowing how radio can be male dominated and is male dominated. So it put me back in that mind frame of, oh, okay, yeah, I see. You got to stay in your little box, I guess, for now.
So what's the time for you,
girl? What's next for Lisa? So I'm writing a book. I think we've talked about that. I'm writing a book, which is taking a lot of time and a lot of my mental capabilities. But I'm writing a book about an experience that happened to me in 2015. I have a online coffee shop with my sister called Not Your Cup of Tea. So I'm going into more entrepreneurial things. I think I want to get into more service work. I think I want to put myself out there and help people and help. I have an issue with homelessness. I have an issue with people not being able to eat. I have an issue with people not being able to be warm. I have an issue with that. So I think I want to dive into those different things, and I have a handful of young women that I mentor too. So I want to get more into those types of things, and acting, voiceovers. I'm still doing my voiceovers, but yeah, that's what's next for me. I'm putting out my resume and my air checks, and we'll see.
Anything else you want to add?
I would like to say, I know a lot of things are happening now with people, and because of the pandemic, and a lot of people are losing their jobs, and a lot of people are just depressed, and a lot of people are not knowing what to do, or the unknown is scary for a lot of people. I just would like to let people know that I believe in a God that if you pray and you put your trust in, that He will see you through. So I would like to leave that with people, that hope for people to have a relationship with their Creator.
Thanks so much for watching. Help change the narrative by becoming a supporter on Facebook.
She was born in Columbus, Georgia in 1886. She kept her roots right here, and she never forgot her roots of Columbus, Georgia. Her first performance in the Springer Opera House at the age of 15, and some history books say 14.
She's the mother of blues.
She's the mother of the blues. Even though she wasn't the first, Mamie Smith was the first recorder of an African-American woman in blues, and that was in the 1920s. She recorded the first. Then Ma Rainey was in 1923. But people don't realize Ma Rainey didn't start recording till she was 37 years old.
Wow.
So it was a short span, but I think the significance of it, she recorded almost 100 sides of music. That's something that no artist does today. 100 sides of music.
Wow.
Ma Rainey's records in Paramount, when they sent these records out, you could buy them through the mail. They were like from 10 cents to 15 cents. This is some of the advertising that Paramount sent when the records were sold. This is a Christmas card. And if you look up under the bottom of the Christmas card, when Paramount was promoting her records. They were known as the Popular Race Records. A Merry Christmas from Paramount. And this was the New York Recording Laboratory.
Wow.
But it wasn't, they always put that, but the records were actually in Port Washington, Wisconsin. So that's where Paramount started out. And it started out as a furniture company and a chair company. That's what it started out in Port Washington. Then they saw this opportunity to start selling the race records made by African Americans. And if you look at this Paramount brochure, this is compliments of the season. This was sent out to all the theaters and the places, and it had all the performers who were on their label. Ma Rainey was one of them, and Lemon Jefferson, and these were all the African American performers who were on Paramount label.
Wow. You know, the other thing that I thought about too is how the building, and you guys have a picture of this in the front, the building was kind of falling apart.
It was no kinda, it was like a bomb had exploded and we had to take pieces and put them back together like a jigsaw puzzle. Either they were going to remodel the house, rehab it, or they were going to tear it down and use it for parking spaces. So it was voted to council, and that day it was 4 to tear it down and 4 to rehab it. And it was done along racial lines, black, white. And Mayor Frank Martin broke the tie to save the house. Later on, after the house, when we had our opening, one of the same council people who voted to tear it down, he came to me, late Red McDaniels, and he said, I just didn't know who she was. I didn't know. And it was like, she was actually born again in Columbus when we opened this house. At the age of 18, a traveling minstrel show came to town, like the poster in back of me, and she met Paul Rainey. They were married up until about 1916. They were known as Ma and Paul Rainey, assassinators of the blues. They traveled in tent shows and all over the country. We don't know what happened to Paul Rainey, but in 1916 they were no more. And history says that she married again, but we don't know. It's very little that we know about the second husband. Ma Rainey continued to travel. She got her, after her and Paul separated, she got her traveling band, performing all over the South. She performed with some of the great names, Thomas Dorsey, Precious Lord Take My Hand, Villarica, Georgia, who was a native. He was one of her band leaders and arrangers. She had Louis Satchmore Armstrong. The tent shows that she performed in, they would spend the winters in New Orleans, and that's where they said she met Louis Armstrong and Kid Orr. So this room chronicles her whole life. It even chronicles her after death. It has where she was buried at in Porterdale Cemetery here. It also has her death certificate is listing her as a housekeeper. She died of heart conditions in 1939, and having over 100 records for Paramount Records, her death certificate says housekeeper. You know, with a museum and a house museum, it's really more significant if you have things that the person lived with. She lived with these things. She slept in that bed. She probably put on her makeup at this dresser. So that's the significance. This is her. She, you know, I can feel her spirit in the room. Okay. This is the piano. This is Ma Rainey's piano. But Ma Rainey didn't play the piano. Her brother Thomas was the musician. Through the house, all the years it was vacant, no one touched the piano. We had vandals stealing the mantle and everything. But the reason they didn't touch it, it was painted green like the house next door. Wow. The trim next door, it was a green piano and stool. And for 20 years, the vandals didn't even touch it. So this is, and it's also the same bird's eye maple that her bedroom suit is. The same design and the same, so this is the same, probably the same manufacturer that did this. Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. Now, August Wilson wrote the play in 1982, and it was performed as you and I talked in 84. It's that jazz session, and tensions are flaring. And that session was in 1927 in a recording session in Chicago. So a lot of people think that the play talks about Columbus and whole life. It's just that one session where she pours her soul out of how she thinks she's been exploited, but she's still standing, you know, and she says, you know, she won't perform till they bring her that Coke. And, you know, that's the control she had. But, you know, she was so unapologetic to the world. She was, this is who I am and what I am, and I'm not going to apologize for it. And that was a time when African Americans, and especially African American women who didn't have a voice, and she had a voice through her music.